"You're still here?" The voice came low and steady, unexpected in the stillness of the night. Maya William flinched, her fingers freezing over the keyboard. The office had fallen into its usual after-hours hush, just the distant hum of climate control, the faint tick of the wall clock, and the soft blue light of computer screens left in standby. She turned her head slowly. Standing at the far end of the corridor, framed by the glow of the emergency exit sign, was a tall man in a dark tailored suit. He didn't move, just looked at her, calm, silent. "Yes, sir," she replied carefully. "I'm just wrapping up." The man gave a slight nod and disappeared around the corner without another word. It wasn't until the elevator doors closed behind him that Maya realized who he was. Marcus Galloway, CEO of Galloway and Finch. Her chest tightened. "He saw me, sitting at someone else's desk, typing like I owned the project." If your heart tightened too when Marcus stood there in silence, give Maya a like. She doesn't need praise, but she deserves to be seen. And don't forget to comment where you're watching this from. Who knows? Someone nearby might be quietly following Maya's journey at the same moment as you. But it hadn't started out this way. Just a few hours earlier, she'd been packing up her things laptop in her tote, earbuds coiled, coat already over her arm when she heard the sharp clatter of a chair against the floor. She glanced down the hall and saw Cameron Lewis, junior associate in the brand team, hunched over his desk like someone had punched the air out of him. His face was pale, his eyes locked on the flickering screen in front of him. "Number no at the hell," he muttered, gripping the edge of his desk. Maya hesitated. She didn't know him well. He'd only spoken to her maybe twice since she started the internship program 6 weeks ago. But something about the way his voice cracked not angry, but frantic made her step closer. "You okay?" she asked gently, keeping a respectful distance. He turned to her, startled. "The file's gone," he said. "The deck me pitch for the morning, it's completely gone." "The campaign deck?" "Yes," he snapped, then softened slightly. "I was adding new graphs, and I must have hit something I don't know. It's all blank now." Maya leaned in a bit. "Is it backed up?" He shook his head. "The backup's corrupted too. I think I overwrote the cache folder when I..." He paused, then looked at her. "You're good with data recovery, right? I heard someone say you helped it last week." Maya blinked. "Well, I know some basics. Can you try? 2 can't stay. I have to get home and prep the oral part. Just see what you can do." And before she could respond, he was already pulling on his coat, muttering something about having dinner with his fiancée and needing at least a few hours of sleep. Maya stood there, stunned, as Cameron shoved a USB into her hand and left her with a mess that wasn't hers. It wasn't her campaign, not her department, not even her building past 9 p.m. But now she was here, sleeves rolled up, trying to recover his file from system temp folders and autosave logs alone. Her stomach grumbled. She hadn't eaten since lunch. Her eyes were heavy, but her hands kept working, out of some strange, quiet resolve. Not because Cameron deserved it, because she did. Because walking away felt like giving in to a system that already expected her to vanish. Around 10:30 p.m., she finally located a partial backup. With some reconstruction and design fixes, it could work. Not great, but passable. She reformatted the charts, adjusted the fonts, corrected the slide numbers, and even inserted placeholder visuals for the missing assets. She was almost done when she felt that sense of being watched. And then the voice. "You're still here?" Marcus Galloway hadn't raised his tone, hadn't looked angry or surprised, just observant, studying her like she was a detail in his own building he'd never noticed before. Now the break room was empty again, the click of her laptop keys the only sound left. Maya exhaled. She saved the file, slipped the USB into a folder labeled Cameron, Final, and leaned back. She could have gone home, could have walked away the moment he left, but she hadn't. Not because anyone told her to, because something inside her refused to let something so carelessly broken stay that way. Somewhere above, maybe on the 21st floor where the executive offices glowed in blue-white silence, a man in a suit had seen the same thing. And for once, she hoped he remembered. The morning sun slid across the glass facade of Galloway and Finch, casting golden lines along the carpeted hallway as the office slowly stirred to life. But Cameron Lewis had arrived even earlier than usual. His coat was perfectly pressed, his gait light and casual as he moved past the reception with a coffee in hand and a Bluetooth earpiece tucked in his right ear. His smile carried no trace of last night's panic. Maya William, sitting 2 rows down in the digital strategy bay, noticed his arrival from the corner of her eye. He didn't glance her way, didn't pause, didn't say a word. No nod, no thanks, nothing. He walked straight to the executive conference room at the end of the corridor, where the morning's pitch to the leadership team was about to begin. Maya sat motionless for a moment, watching him disappear through the frosted glass doors. She lowered her eyes back to her screen, the gentle hum of email notifications barely registering in her ears. Her own coffee sat untouched, lukewarm by now, a quiet symbol of the night she'd traded for someone else's credit. The deck she had stayed to repair the graphs she recreated from memory. The branding adjustments she refined at 11:45 p.m. The slide transitions she softened so they'd feel seamless was being presented right now as if it had been his work all along. A few minutes passed, then 10, then 15. Inside the glass room, laughter rippled, a voice clapped, then another. Cameron stood near the monitor, gesturing confidently at a slide Maya recognized instantly. The color scheme, the layout. She even remembered retyping the title, Momentum Through Message Clarity, because Cameron's original had read, Move Forward by Talking Straight. Through the glass, Maya could see heads nodding. A woman near the end of the table leaned in to say something. Another executive made a circular motion with his hand, as if to say, keep it going. Then, Marcus Galloway entered the room. He didn't sit. He stood in the back, arms folded, listening, watching. From her desk, Maya froze. That same electric presence from last night silent, observant seemed to fill the room even without a word spoken. Her breath caught for a moment. She leaned back in her chair. She thought about the USB drive, the long hours, the way Cameron had walked out with barely a sentence, leaving her to sweep up the wreckage. And now he was in there glowing under fluorescent lights, soaking in praise that didn't belong to him alone. But Maya wasn't angry. Not exactly. She was used to being invisible, expected to do more, be more, with less. Interns, especially interns who looked like her, weren't expected to leave fingerprints. They were expected to erase them. Inside the conference room, applause broke out. Light, Polita, but genuine. The deck had been approved. Cameron smiled, collected his laptop, and shook hands with one of the board members. His step quickened with satisfaction as he left the room. Only one person didn't clap. Marcus Galloway stood still in the corner. His eyes hadn't left the final slide on the screen Maya had added in the very last minute, just before shutting down her computer at nearly midnight. It was a small detail, a quote, white on soft blue, nestled between the logo and the closing message. Clarity is earned through effort, not volume. She hadn't told anyone it was hers. It wasn't flashy, just honest. Marcus's eyes narrowed slightly. Then, as the executives began to filter out, chatting lightly, he stepped forward toward the laptop still plugged into the wall. He tapped a few keys, checked the metadata. The system timestamp showed it had been last modified at 11:57 p.m., not Cameron's style, and Marcus Galloway knew that. He turned, peering out through the glass wall toward the workstations below. He scanned the floor until his eyes landed on Maya. She wasn't looking at him. She was typing, focused, controlled, pretending none of this had anything to do with her. But Marcus didn't look away. He saw her, and he remembered what he'd seen the night before: the empty hallway, the flicker of a screen, the way her shoulders hunched as she leaned forward, not for praise but for purpose. He didn't call her name, didn't send a message. But as he turned from the room, something in his expression had shifted. A quiet recognition, a stored thought. Later that morning, as Maya refilled her tea in the break room, Cameron strolled by, chatting on the phone about how clean the flow of the deck felt and how the client team's gonna love the updated metrics. Still no thank you. Still no glance. Maya sipped her tea slowly, the bitterness grounding. She didn't need his thanks, because someone in that room knew, and that someone mattered. Maya sat at her desk, fingers idle above the keyboard, the afternoon light washing through the tall office windows like a pale silk curtain. The office was quieter now post-presentation lull. People scrolled emails or stepped out for overpriced lattes. She could hear the soft laughter of coworkers behind her, someone unwrapping a sandwich 2 desks down, the clack of dress shoes in the hallway. She didn't move. Not yet. The email was still open on her screen. From Marcus Galloway. Subject: meeting request. Time: 4 p.m. Location: Executive Office, 21st floor. Body: please join me briefly this afternoon. Briefly. One word. No reason. No context. Just the CEO's name sitting at the top of her inbox like a stone on her chest. She had read it at least 5 times, maybe 10. She had never spoken to Marcus Galloway before, not directly, not formally. She'd seen him walk through the office once, months ago, flanked by 3 VPs and a project manager with a clipboard. He hadn't looked at anyone, hadn't needed to. So why now? Maya, everything okay? She blinked and turned. Dana stood by her desk again, holding a folder. You look like you saw a ghost, Dana said lightly. Maya swallowed. I have a meeting with Mr. Galloway. Dana's eyebrows lifted. Marcus Galloway? Maya nodded. When? 4. Dana looked at the clock. That's in 20 minutes. Maya nodded again. Her voice stuck somewhere between her lungs and her throat. Dana leaned in, lowering her voice. Don't worry, he doesn't bring people in to fire them. At least, not interns. She smiled, trying to comfort. Just be yourself. Maya offered a weak smile in return, then turned back to her screen, as if she could type her nerves away. By 3:58, she stood in front of the elevator, palms lightly sweating, notebook in one hand, trying to keep her posture neutral. Inside the elevator, she pressed 21 and felt the subtle shift of the floor as it rose, each number illuminated like a heartbeat. At the top floor, the doors opened into a quieter world, more glass, more silence, more space between things. The air smelled faintly of cedar and something expensive. His assistant was already waiting. Miss William. Yes. Mr. Galloway will see you now. The door opened with barely a whisper. Marcus stood by the window, hands in his pockets, looking out at the skyline. The view stretched across the city Chicago rooftops, traffic like silver ants below, Lake Michigan a frozen sheet in the distance. He didn't turn immediately. Please, have a seat, he said. Maya sat in one of the leather chairs, placing her notebook on her lap. The room was pristine and minimalist, masculine, but not cold, just intentional. After a pause, Marcus finally turned to face her. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes weren't harsh. They were clear, steady. I watched your colleague present this morning, he began. Maya nodded slowly. Yes, sir. The deck was clean, structured, surprisingly so. A flicker of silence passed. He stepped closer, pulling out a chair across from her and sitting down. No desk between them now. No barrier. You finished it, didn't you? He asked plainly. Maya opened her mouth, then closed it. The truth was hovering between them, fragile. I helped, she said carefully. Marcus tilted his head. Helped? He lost the original, she added more firmly now. I stayed late to reconstruct what I could. He nodded, not challenging her. And he left you with it. Maya hesitated, then nodded once. Marcus leaned back slightly, his eyes never leaving hers. Why? The question struck deeper than she expected. She took a breath. Because I knew it needed to be done, and I knew no one else would do it in time. Even though it wasn't your job. Especially because it wasn't my job. He blinked at that. Not out of disapproval, but as if filing it away. And you didn't think to tell anyone this morning? Maya shifted in her seat. I wasn't sure that was appropriate. You mean, you weren't sure if it would help or hurt? She met his eyes. Yes. He nodded again, slower this time. A moment of quiet passed. Outside, the city hummed like a distant tide. Then Marcus reached to the side table and picked up a slim folder. He placed it between them and opened it. Inside was a printed copy of the campaign deck. A red pen circled one small detail near the footer of the last slide. Clarity is earned through effort, not volume. He tapped the line. That's yours, isn't it? Maya's lips parted, but no sound came. Marcus didn't press. He just nodded once more, as if confirming a truth already known. My father used to say something similar, he murmured, though not as elegantly. She gave a soft smile. My mom says it about raising kids. Now he smiled too, just a flicker, gone almost as fast. He closed the folder. I wanted to meet the person who made last night's recovery possible, but more than that, I wanted to meet the person who knew when to step up and when to stay quiet. Maya exhaled, unsure if she'd been holding her breath. You've shown more judgment in one night than some associates show in 3 years, he said. Thank you, she whispered. Marcus stood. We're evaluating candidates for an internal development track, leadership training, not part of the intern program. She looked up sharply. He continued. I'd like your name on the short list. She blinked. I don't know what to say. You already said it, Marcus replied. You stayed. Oh, as she stood to leave, he added one more linquiet, almost to himself. In this company, everyone sees who shines in the spotlight. I pay attention to the ones who shine in the dark. Maya left the office with a heart beating faster than it had all morning. Something invisible had shifted. Not in the company. In her. The rest of the day passed in a blur. But for Maya William, something had changed quietly, but unmistakably. She returned to her desk after the meeting with Marcus Galloway with a calmness that felt foreign, almost borrowed. Her hand still trembled slightly when she reached for her mouse, but the breath in her chest had settled. She no longer felt like she was balancing on the edge of a ledge, waiting to fall. Her inbox, as always, was full. Messages from the design team, an update on Friday's intern lunch, a reminder about submitting timesheets. Nothing dramatic, nothing unusual, and yet she read every word like someone reading for clues in a novel she didn't write. Cameron passed by her desk twice that afternoon, once carrying a new wireless headset, once laughing on the phone with someone about a follow-up with leadership. Still not a word to her, still no recognition. But now, it didn't sting the same way. Because someone had seen her. Because the person who mattered had looked past the title and the badge and the silence and had seen her. Still, the sense of unfinished business lingered like static under her skin. That evening, long after most of the office had emptied out, Maya sat in front of her screen, alone again. It was nearly 8:45 p.m. The hallway lights had dimmed. The cleaning crew hadn't arrived yet. Somewhere down the corridor, she heard the faint whir of the vending machine dispensing someone's late-night snack. She should have gone home. Her mother had texted her hours ago. You working late again, baby? Don't skip dinner. She'd replied with a thumbs up. It wasn't quite a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. On her screen was the original campaign folder, Cameron's project. All the raw materials. She'd kept a copy for backup, just in case. And now, as she scrolled through it, she saw clearly how fragmented it had been. Notes with no cohesion, graphs copied from outdated sources. A layout designed to impress, but not to communicate. She remembered what Marcus had said. You've shown more judgment in one night than some associates show in 3 years. That line echoed now not as praise, but as responsibility. Because the truth was, Maya hadn't just helped. She had rebuilt. From nothing. Her cursor hovered over the final version of the presentation. She clicked into it, not to edit, but just to look. To remind herself it was real. Then she noticed something strange. Slide 17, the one with the impact metrics. She frowned. There was a set of statistics she hadn't input. She knew that because she'd intentionally left that field blank. The data hadn't been recoverable. Yet here it was, populated, dated, labeled. But the source didn't exist. The numbers looked good, impressive even. But Maya recognized immediately they were inflated. Too clean. Too perfect. She clicked through the notes. Cameron had returned to the file that morning and quietly updated it just enough to add his own stamp. But the numbers were wrong. Manipulated. It wasn't an error. It was deliberate. She sat back in her chair, stomach tightening. This wasn't just about her not getting credit. This was now a matter of integrity, of misrepresentation, of someone using her hard work as a foundation to push something untrue. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard. She could walk away, pretend she hadn't noticed. The file had already been approved. No one would double-check unless a client flagged it. Or, she could say something. But what would that look like? An intern accusing a full-time employee of data tampering? After the CEO had already praised the project? After Cameron had already walked away with the glory? She stood up, pacing the aisle between the desks. The silence of the office wrapped around her like a heavy curtain. Her shoes tapped softly against the low carpet. A few feet away, a floor lamp buzzed faintly. No one would know if she said nothing. No one would blame her. And yet, she sat down again, pulled up her Outlook, started a draft. Marcus Galloway. Subject: Clarification on campaign data. Slide 17. She stared at the blinking cursor, then deleted the draft. Not yet. She needed to be sure. She opened her Slack window and sent a message to Andy, the night shift IT tech. Maya, 9, 2 p.m. Hey, random favor, can you check version history on the campaign deck from last night? Andy replied within a minute. Andy, 9:04 p.m. You mean Cameron final? Maya, 9, 5 p.m. Yeah. I think someone edited it this morning, just want to confirm. Andy, 9:07 p.m. Yep, timestamp at 7:21 a.m. edited from Cameron's login. Slides 12, 17, and 21 modified. Maya, 9, 8 p.m. Thanks, that's all I needed. Now she was certain. And that changed everything. She leaned back in her chair and looked out at the city beyond the window. Lights flickered like tiny pulses. The trains hissed in the distance. Somewhere, people were finishing dinner, watching late-night television, laughing. But here inside, this glass box truth bent easily beneath polish. She took a deep breath, then reopened Outlook. This time, she didn't write to Marcus. She wrote to herself. A detailed note, with timestamps, screenshots, a full account of what had been edited, when, and how it differed from the version she finalized. It wasn't an accusation. It was a record, because Maya wasn't going to rush into anything. She wasn't naive, but she wasn't going to pretend either. As she hit Save Draft, she glanced once more toward the hallway, the same corridor where Marcus had appeared the night before. She whispered to herself, steady and quiet. No more invisible lines. Then she shut down her laptop, gathered her things, and walked out of the building not as an intern finishing another long day, but as someone who had just crossed into something deeper. The next morning, Maya walked into the office earlier than usual. The winter wind still clung to her coat, and her fingers, half frozen from the train ride, wrapped tightly around a travel mug filled with gas station coffee. She barely tasted it. Her thoughts were loud enough to drown out flavor. She had barely slept. The filiale, the one Cameron had doctored still, sat in her draft folder, along with the notes she'd written for herself. No one else had seen it. Not yet. But it existed now, and so did the choice. It gnawed at her. She passed the front desk, nodded at the security guard, and stepped into the open floor plan of the digital strategy department. Lights were just beginning to flicker on. The office smelled faintly of lemon disinfectant and fresh toner. Cameron was already there, perched on the edge of his desk, chatting with two coworkers from marketing like he hadn't faked half his metrics 12 hours earlier. He laughed, loud and easy, coffee cup in one hand, phone in the other. When he spotted Maya, he gave her a brief wave, friendly, almost brotherly, like they were in on the same secret. She gave a tight smile and kept walking. Maya, he called after her. She stopped. Hey meant to say thanks. You really pulled through on that thing. Everyone said the flow was killer. Her heart thudded, steady and hard. That's what you told them? She asked, keeping her voice light. He shrugged. Well, I didn't say it was you, if that's what you mean. But it's not like I claimed it either. People assumed. I just let the deck speak for itself. She held his gaze. Even slide 17? Cameron blinked. Her tone hadn't changed, but something in her eyes made him shift. It's fine, he said quickly. Just bump the numbers to what we expect next quarter. No biggie. Everyone does it. She didn't respond, just nodded and walked to her station. Cameron returned to his desk, still smiling, but she noticed his laughter didn't come back as easily. At 10:12 a.m., her inbox pinged. From Marcus Galloway. Subject: Drop by quick follow-up. It wasn't scheduled. No assistant. No calendar hold. Just a line. Simple. Direct. Her heart jumped. She stood, brushed invisible lint from her blazer, and walked toward the elevator with legs that felt both numb and too light. The ride to the 21st floor was quiet, her reflection in the polished chrome doors looking older than it had 2 weeks ago. When she stepped into Marcus's office, He was again standing by the window, back to the door. She waited. After a moment, he turned, expression unreadable. Maya. Yes, Seer. I wanted to check in on something. Not official. Just curiosity. She tilted her head slightly. He walked to the side table, picked up a folder, and opened it. Inside was a printed version of the campaign deck again. Only this time, a post-it note was attached to slide 17. Projected numbers, he said. I asked finance to verify them. They couldn't, at least, not with current data. Maya felt her throat tighten. I went back to the metadata, Marcus continued. Just to be thorough. Slide 17 was updated at 7:21 a.m. the morning of the pitch. He looked up. That wasn't you, was it? No, Seer. He waited, quietly, offering her a moment. She took a breath. I finalized the deck just before midnight. What was there then wasn't what was shown in the meeting, which means someone else changed it. He didn't press, didn't ask who, didn't need to. I see, he said simply. He closed the folder and set it aside. Then, did you plan on telling me? She hesitated. I wanted to be sure that it wasn't a mistake, that I wasn't just overreacting. Marcus sat across from her, elbows resting lightly on his knees. Let me tell you what I saw, he said. I saw an intern stay late to fix a project that someone else abandoned. I saw that same intern show discretion when things got complicated. And now I'm watching her choose again between comfort and integrity. He leaned back. I don't expect interns to be perfect, but I do notice who acts like they already understand what leadership looks like. Maya sat still, heart pounding louder than before. I'm not here to ask you to throw someone under the bus, he said. That's not how we build anything that lasts. But I do want to ask you one thing. She waited. If this were your campaign, he said gently, if your name had been on that deck, would you have let those numbers go through? Her answer came without hesitation. Number. He nodded once. Then maybe it's time we find a way to make sure your name is on something. He stood, walked to his desk, and picked up another file. I've spoken to HR. There's an opening in our internal development rotation. It's fast track, cross-departmental, meant for high-potential candidates. He offered the folder across the desk. I'd like you to consider applying. Officially. Maya didn't reach for it right away. But what about Cameron? She asked softly. Marcus gave a long pause. Then, people like him eventually hit ceilings of their own making. My concern isn't punishing him. It's building something better than what he represents. Maya took the folder. It felt heavier than it looked. She nodded slowly. I'll think about it. Good, Marcus said. And Maya? She looked up. If you ever feel like you're standing on the edge between being invisible and being seen, remember this moment. And remember you earned it. As she walked out, her pulse steady, her eyes sharp, the silence in the elevator felt different. It didn't feel empty anymore. It felt full of decision. Friday morning arrived, draped in a gentle snowfall that made the Chicago skyline shimmer through the tall windows of Galloway and Finch. Inside the office, energy buzzed with end-of-week relief. People chatted louder, schedules loosened, and even the overused coffee machine seemed to hiss with less bitterness. But for Maya William, the day moved differently. She'd spent Thursday night reviewing the folder Marcus had given her twice. It outlined the expectations of the leadership rotation, rotating through departments, presenting to real clients, mentorship under a senior executive. The timeline was short. The pressure was real. It wasn't a ceremonial offer, it was an open door. But Maya had been at enough doors in her life to know that not every invitation was sincere. She'd filled out the application anyway. Now, as the office filled with the sounds of typing and phones ringing, Maya sat quietly at her desk, checking her calendar when a surprising event notification popped up. Quarterly all-staff town hall, 10 a.m. 17th floor auditorium. She blinked. No one had mentioned a town hall. Usually they were scheduled weeks in advance, a mandatory appearance. Most people endured them with forced smiles and coffee in hand, waiting for metrics and product updates to be recited by VPs in tailored suits. But this one felt different. Last minute. Unexpected. By 9:55, the elevators were packed. Maya stood near the back, wedged between two managers from finance whispering about client budgets. As the doors opened onto the 17th floor, a familiar hum filled the air projectors warming up, chairs being straightened, a murmur of voices that quieted once people began to take their seats. Marcus Galloway stood off to the side of the stage, no slides behind him, just a single wooden stool and a small wireless mic resting in his hand. Maya took a seat in the back row, unsure why her pulse quickened. She wasn't sure what she was expecting, but not this. At exactly 10 a.m., Marcus stepped to the center of the stage. No PowerPoint, no preamble. "Good morning," he said. The room fell silent. "I'll keep this short. We'll skip the charts, the dashboards, the usual." A small ripple of laughter moved through the room. "Today," he continued, "I want to talk about something that doesn't fit into a spreadsheet, something we don't always notice until it's missing. Integrity, quiet leadership, doing the right thing when no one is watching. That." Maya's fingers curled lightly in her lap. He paused, scanning the crowd. "Earlier this week," he said, "a critical campaign presentation was delivered to the leadership board. Most of you heard it was a success, that the metrics were promising, that the structure was clean." A few people nodded. Cameron, 3 rows up, shifted slightly in his chair. "But what you didn't hear," Marcus continued, "is who built that presentation, who stayed late after everyone else had gone home, who pieced it back together after it had been mishandled." Cameron sat up straighter. Maya sat still. Her breath caught mid-chest. Marcus turned slightly, eyes searching. And then he found her. "In a company this large, it's easy to miss the people holding it together behind the scenes," he said. "But not this time." "Maya William," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Would you join me up here?" The room stilled. Every head turned. Maya froze for a second, unsure if she'd heard right. Then she stood, legs suddenly uncertain beneath her. She made her way toward the front, her heart thudding with each step. People whispered as she passed, some in curiosity, some in surprise. Marcus reached out a hand to help her onto the stage. "This," he said, gesturing to her, "is what quiet excellence looks like." Maya stood beside him, eyes scanning the room full of strangers and colleagues, faces blinking up at her like she'd been invisible yesterday and materialized today. "For her judgment, initiative, and integrity," Marcus continued, "I'm proud to announce that Maya has been officially selected for our internal leadership rotation program, effective immediately." The room broke into applause, but it wasn't the polite, obligatory kind. It started small then, grew, real, respectful, and for the first time since joining the company, Maya didn't feel like a footnote. She felt seen. As the clapping subsided, Marcus spoke once more. "This company cannot grow on titles alone. It grows on action, on character, and Maya reminded us of that this week." He turned to her. "Congratulations." She nodded, her voice caught in her throat. "Thank you." As she stepped down from the stage, people stopped her. A handshake here, a quiet smile there. A manager from client relations leaned in and said, "Been a while since someone earned this the right way." Cameron didn't speak to her as she walked past him. He didn't need to. His silence said enough. Back at her desk, Maya set the folder down now with her name officially printed inside. She sat, staring at the screen, the moment echoing inside her like a bell. She hadn't asked for recognition. She'd earned it anyway. And somewhere, deep in the quiet part of her spirit, something whispered, "You belong here, not because they let you in, but because you walked in and stayed." The Monday after the town hall felt different. It wasn't loud. There was no parade or dramatic shift. But Maya William could feel it in the quiet spaces, the way eyes lingered just a moment longer when she passed by. The way coworkers who used to glance through her now paused and nodded in acknowledgement. Even the receptionist, who had only ever said, "Badge, please," greeted her with a smile that reached her eyes. Respect had a weight to it, not heavy like shame, not stiff like formality, but present, solid, earned. At her desk, the email threads looked the same, brand briefs, scheduling logistics, follow-ups, but now her name sat higher in the CC lines. Sometimes, even in the two, her Slack lit up more often not with idle chatter, but real collaboration. People were starting to ask for her input, not just her effort. Still, Maya didn't let the sudden attention distract her. She knew how quickly the spotlight could turn. So she kept her head down and did what she always did, showed up early, listened twice before speaking, and made sure her work was so tight no one could find a seam to pick at. By Wednesday, she had been officially assigned a rotation mentor, Colleen Marsh, the director of strategic planning. Colleen had been with the company since the early 2000s and was known for her sharp eye, dry wit, and an uncanny ability to spot flaws in a 5-minute brief. Their first meeting took place in Colleen's glass-walled office on the 20th floor. As Maya stepped inside, she noticed the photo frames on the wall of Colleen at a gala shaking hands with someone who looked vaguely like a senator, another of her in a hard hat on a construction site in Detroit. A small ceramic mug on her desk read, "Don't bring me problems, bring me coffee." Colleen didn't waste time. "I read through your file," she said, closing her laptop. Impressive judgment under pressure. Not easy to earn Marcus's trust. He doesn't do sentiment. Maya offered a small smile. "I've noticed. I'll be blunt. This rotation is real work. You'll have to navigate politics, pressure, and people who think interns should only fetch lattes. You ready for that?" Maya nodded. Yes. Colleen studied her for a beat. Good. Because ready or not, it's already happening. Oh. Over the next few days, the effect of Maya's recognition began to spread in ways no announcement could have predicted. On Thursday, one of the janitors, Mr. Leonard, a gentleman in his 60s who always hummed Stevie Wonder songs, while mopping, found a folded note on the counter of the 8th-floor kitchen. It was from someone anonymous. A handwritten thank you. Next to it sat a $15 gift card to a local diner and a post-it that read, "Because someone noticed." The morning crew and facilities started receiving fresh donuts once a week. No memo, no names, just a box, waiting. In Maya's own department, things shifted too. A junior analyst named Tina, who had always been quiet, finally spoke up in a brainstorming meeting. When she suggested a completely new approach to a client's rebranding strategy, the room went silent. Normally, that would have been the end of it. But then Colleen looked at Maya and said, "What do you think?" Maya paused, then replied, "It's risky, but smart." Colleen nodded. "Then we explore it." That moment cracked something open. Not just for Tina but for every quiet person in the room who'd been holding back. Even Cameron had changed, though not publicly. He avoided eye contact in group settings, kept his comments short. But one afternoon, Maya found a sticky note on her monitor when she returned from lunch. "You didn't have to fix it, but you did. I won't forget that." See, it wasn't much, but it was something, and it meant more that he hadn't said it out loud. Just left it there, in silence, where no one could twist it. Marcus, for his part, remained distant. He didn't hover or micromanage, but once, in a passing hallway moment, he caught her eye and said simply, "Keep going." That was all, but for Maya, it was enough. The ripples kept spreading. By Friday, the HR department launched a new initiative called Echo, designed to spotlight behind-the-scenes contributions company-wide, not based on titles, not nominations from executives, just peer-to-peer recognition, anonymous if desired, quiet but meaningful. And when asked about the inspiration behind the program, the HR director said, "Sometimes the smallest action reverberates the loudest." We were reminded of that last week. Maya heard the quote during lunch. She didn't smile, not outwardly, but inside, something warmed. She remembered sitting alone weeks ago, patching together a broken campaign deck that didn't belong to her. She remembered the hallway lights, the scent of stale coffee, and the echo of silence. Now, there were echoes of something else. Dignity, community, visibility. That evening, as the office emptied and most people filtered into elevators or weekend plans, Maya stayed behind a few extra minutes. She walked down the quiet corridor toward the break room. The city blinked beyond the tall windows, snow still gently falling. She stopped near the spot where she'd stood that night, the one where Marcus first saw her. For a moment, she imagined her reflection overlapping with the memory of that version of herself, tired, unsure, invisible. She whispered, just loud enough for no one else to hear, "You mattered even before they saw you." Then she turned off the lights, gathered her bag, and headed for the elevator, not out of duty, not out of fear, but out of purpose. Because now, she walked with something deeper than ambition. She walked with weight. The following week began with a quiet calm, the kind that settled in when storms had passed but left the air changed. Maya William arrived at the office just after sunrise, her breath misting in the cold as she stepped through the revolving glass doors of Galloway and Finch. A new name badge clipped to her coat pocket read, Leadership Rotation Program, Maya William. She still wasn't used to the way people looked at her now, not with awe, not with fear, but with awareness. She had moved from that intern to the one who, and though most people didn't finish the sentence out loud, she knew what they were thinking. She'd been the one who stayed, the one who didn't walk away. By 8:30, she was on the 20th floor in a small side office that Colleen had temporarily assigned her. It was nothing glamorous, just a desk, a phone, and a view of the alley between two buildings, but it was hers. And for the first time in her young career, Maya had a space where she didn't feel like she was borrowing air. Colleen passed by with 2 folders tucked under one arm. You've got 5 minutes to look over the Walden brief. We're reviewing it with legal at 9. Maya nodded. Already started. Colleen arched a brow. Of course you have. Maya smiled. Not many people impressed Colleen Marsh, but she was starting to sense that the older woman respected her, not for being exceptional, but for being consistent. At 9 o'clock, the meeting began. At 9:07, Maya corrected a clause in the budget summary no one else had caught. At 9:28, she proposed a more client-facing language shift that made the legal head nod, then scribble in his notebook. By 9:45, the meeting was over, and as people filed out, Colleen said, half to Maya and half to herself, good eyes, quiet mouth, dangerous combo. Later that day, Maya received a message from Marcus's office. No subject, just a location. Conference room, 21st floor, 5 p.m. No instructions, no warning. When she arrived, the room was empty. Not sterily, just silent. The city stretched beyond the full-length windows, lights beginning to twinkle as dusk descended over Chicago. The skyline was soft against a steel-gray sky, and Maya walked toward the glass instinctively, as if pulled by memory. This was the room. This was the view. The same one Marcus had stood before the night he saw her cleaning up someone else's mess, long after the world had stopped paying attention. She let her hand rest lightly on the cold windowpane. Behind her, the door opened. She turned. Marcus entered alone, coat draped over one arm, no assistant trailing behind. He nodded once in greeting and gestured to the chairs near the window. They both sat. I wanted to ask you something off the record, he said, his voice quieter than usual. Maya waited. Since the town hall, since everything that followed, have you felt the company changing? She paused. Yes. He studied her face. For the better? She nodded. In ways that matter, and in ways that last? She thought a moment longer before answering. That depends. On what? On whether we protect the small things that got us here, she said. Not just initiatives and memos, but moments, the kind no one's tracking. Marcus leaned back in his chair, thoughtful. This building, he said slowly, was designed with glass walls and open spaces to foster transparency. I used to believe that if people were seen, they'd act accordingly. He looked out the window. But I've learned something else. Being seen isn't the same as being recognized. And real leadership, real character, it happens when no one's watching. Or when only one person is. Maya's eyes softened. And sometimes, that's enough. He looked at her then, really looked. You've reminded this company of that, not through a speech, but by showing up, and showing what that looks like. She felt heat rise behind her eyes, but she didn't blink it away. You started something, he continued. We're calling it a ripple, but maybe it's more. HR has received nearly 24 internal nominations this week for unsung efforts. Things that never made a slide. People are paying attention to the quiet now, not just the loud. Maya smiled. That was never just about me. No, he agreed. But you lit the match. They sat in companionable silence for a moment, the kind that didn't need to be filled. Then Marcus stood. I'm heading out early tonight, for once. Maya stood too. At the door he paused. One more thing. Oh. She tilted her head. Don't ever think your story here ends with this rotation. I'm watching where it goes next. So are others. She nodded, her voice steady. Then I'll make sure it's worth watching. Marcus gave a rare smile of quiet pretty and left. Maya turned back toward the window. Below, the streetlights flickered on one by one. A couple passed by with their hands laced together. A cyclist darted past a stopped taxi. Life continued, unaware that somewhere above, a girl who used to wonder if she was invisible now stood at a window of a corner office, remembered. And this time, it wasn't the building that saw her. It was herself. 2 weeks after the town hall, the rhythm of Galloway and Finch had settled into something new, not louder, not busier, but more deliberate. People still typed fast and drank bad coffee and rushed into meetings with printouts half-stapled. But there was a difference in how they moved, in how they noticed. The subtle shift could be seen in the way Kyle from tech support was invited to client debriefs, or how Eva in facilities had a desk plaque made for her that simply read, "Because you fix more than just what's broken." Maya William didn't talk about it. She didn't lead a crusade, but the change moved through the company like the whisper of a new current under old water. She was now on her third rotation, embedded with the market insight team. Her schedule was grueling, the expectations high, but Maya thrived in the quiet pressure, the kind that shaped people without breaking them. On Friday morning, she was in the break room refilling her tea when Cameron walked in. It had been weeks since they'd spoken, if you could call their last exchange speaking. He nodded. "Hey, morning," Maya said, polite but flat. He lingered at the coffee machine, staring into his cup. The silence stretched a beat too long. Then he turned to her, eyes tired in a way Maya hadn't seen before. "I heard you're working with the insight team now," he said. "Just started," she replied. He nodded again. Then, "Look, about the deck, and everything after." She looked at him, waiting. He swallowed. "You were right, about the numbers, about the work." Maya said nothing. "I don't know why I let it happen that way," he continued. "Maybe I thought no one would care, or that no one would notice." "You were half right," Maya said quietly. "Most people wouldn't have." He flinched, but didn't disagree. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," he said, "trying to figure out what kind of person I want to be here, what kind of leader I could be, if I ever deserve that chance." Maya didn't soften, but she didn't walk away either. "Start with the next thing you're assigned," she said. "Finish it. Do it clean. Do it right. That's all any of us can do." He looked at her for a long moment, then gave a slow nod. "Thanks," he said, voice low, "for not torching me publicly." "I didn't do it for you," Maya replied. "I did it for the work." Cameron offered a faint smile, wounded, but grateful, and left the room. Later that afternoon, Colleen dropped by Maya's desk, tossing a binder onto her keyboard. "Final challenge," she said. "Client pitch next Friday. You'll be leading." Maya blinked. "I thought I was observing." "You've observed enough," Colleen replied, already halfway back down the hall. "Now go make someone uncomfortable." Maya grinned. She stayed late that night, but not because she had to, because she wanted to get it right. As the sun dipped behind the skyline, casting long amber streaks through the 20th floor windows, she stood up and stretched. She looked out over the city, and then she walked, not down the elevator, but up, to the 21st floor. The executive level was quiet. No footsteps, no humming printers, just the soft glow of emergency lights and the deep hush of after-hours stillness. She walked slowly past the boardroom, past Marcus's closed office, until she reached the glass-walled corner room, the same one where this entire shift had begun. She stepped inside. The space was empty now, but the view remained the same, a full panorama of Chicago under dusk, the buildings like sculptures, the streets glowing like veins. Maya walked to the same window she'd stood at weeks before, the same place where Marcus had once watched her. She stood there now not as someone being watched, but as someone who had learned to see. She pulled a small notebook from her pocket, just a worn moleskine with soft edges. She flipped to the last page and wrote a line. "Leadership isn't about being seen. It's about seeing others and refusing to look away." She tapped the pen once against the page. Then she looked out again, and for the first time since she stepped through the doors of this company, she didn't feel like a visitor. She felt like part of its frame. Downstairs, someone vacuumed a hallway. Somewhere, a night shift janitor straightened a stack of forgotten papers. Someone reloaded the paper in the printer. Quiet things, invisible things. But Maya knew better now. Those quiet footsteps weren't background noise. They were the foundation. She turned off the light, tucked the notebook away, and stepped back into the hallway. As the door clicked shut behind her, the words she'd once whispered to herself returned stronger now. You mattered before they saw you. And now, they always would.